What's going on YouTube? So in front of me we have the 2015 Victory Highball. I specifically bought this bike for a road trip we're just about to do. Just wanted to give you my thoughts on the bike right before a road trip. And I have a few doubts about the bike, but I'm gonna make another video after the road trip and kind of sum up my overall thoughts on this bike. This bike is a full stage one. It's got intake, exhaust, it's got the Lloyd's ignition timing wheel on it, Lloyd's quarter turn throttle, and it's been dyno tuned. So hopefully those accessories will help it hang with the sport bikes. So if you're familiar with me, I am a diehard sport bike fan. We're taking the R6 across country here. And I thought it would be fun to try a cruiser because my initial thoughts on this bike, the seating position is really comfortable. Your back straight up and down. Mirror visibility is good. It's got decent power. It's a bit on the loud side, but the exhaust is kind of behind the rider. So most of it comes out behind you. It doesn't seem too bad around town, but I don't have a ton of seat time on this bike yet. One thing that does make me a little bit nervous about the bike is the lean angle. You can initiate your lean angle very easy. It handles pretty well, but only up to a certain point. Like I can scrape pegs on this bike, pulling in and out of parking lots, going walking speed almost. So that's a little bit concerning because we are gonna hit some pretty aggressive back canyon roads. We're gonna take this bike right from sea level all the way up to about 12,000 feet. So we're really gonna push it to the limits. And this is a cruiser. I'm a sport bike rider by nature. So I'm gonna be pushing this bike almost as hard as I can and see where the limits are. If I'm happy with those limits or if I'm gonna be selling the bike after the trip, maybe I'm gonna be disappointed. So I'm very excited to get more seat time and see if this American muscle style bike can really keep me engaged for a month-long road trip. We're probably gonna be putting on about 6,000 kilometers, something like that. So lots of time spent on this bike and I'm really gonna get to know it. A few things that I do really like about the bike. Cops really don't hassle you on the cruisers, even if you are riding a little bit more aggressively. They really hassle you on the sport bikes. If you're in a lot of start and stop traffic, it's really easy to find neutral, so you're not fumbling around with the transmission on this bike. It is pretty notchy, feels decent. I haven't ran a full tank of fuel yet, but it seems to get pretty good mileage, even better than the sport bikes. So that's pretty impressive for an engine that's twice the size. And a bike that's twice as heavy as well. Keeping fuel costs down when you're traveling long distance, definitely a plus, especially when you're in those small towns by the coast or wherever, when fuel prices are really high. I think the tires on this bike should last a lot longer than the sport bike tires, so that's a plus. Shouldn't have to worry about replacing tires halfway through our trip, because a lot of times we have to on the sport bikes. This bike is pretty comfortable all the way up to 120 kilometers an hour. But if you're pushing faster than that, say you're trying to pass somebody, it's really not that comfortable. You get a lot of wind buffeting, even with the windshield on there. So depending on the roads, it could be really comfortable or you could be fighting it a little bit. So that'll be interesting to get some more seat time on that side of things. The brakes, visually they look a little underpowered, but I haven't really been able to test them. We're gonna take them on some mountain roads and really put them to the test, see if I can find the limits of the brakes on this bike, which is a little concerning because it has half the braking as the sport bikes and it's twice as heavy. So that'll be a big variable on this bike, I think. It's usually pretty fun pushing a bike to its limits. So I think this bike is gonna be relatively easy. Pushing it to its limits might be pretty fun. So not too concerned. I'm still gonna enjoy the bike for what it is. Regardless of how this bike performs, we're gonna have a great trip. At the end of the day, this bike is still great value for what it is. Relatively new, pretty big engine. It looks great. I'm very happy with it overall. So stay tuned for my next video and see if that changes. And I will catch you guys in the next video.